Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News, an Indian perspective on All India Radio. This is Saira Mujtaba and with me is Reshma Tiwari, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India's successes in 2022 created special place for it in the world. Pushpendra Kamal Prachand appointed Nepal's Prime Minister for the third time. Former Maldives Prime Minister Abdullah Yameen sentenced to 11 years of imprisonment over money laundering and bribery charges. NGOs in Afghanistan suspend work due to lack of female staff after ban on female education by Taliban. Chinese military performs strike drills around Taiwan. Experts lament a constant decline in polar bear population, saying it indicates grave climate change side effects. Christmas celebrations across the globe marked by gaiety and festive fervour. And in cricket, India clinched the Test series against Bangladesh. And now the news in detail. In Afghanistan, 3 NGOs, namely Save the Children, the Norwegian Refugee Council and CARE, suspended their work. The developments came after Afghanistan's Taliban rulers on Tuesday banned female students from attending universities effective immediately. Afghan women have since demonstrated in major cities against the ban, a rare sign of domestic protest since the Taliban seized power last year. The NGO said they cannot effectively reach children, women and men in Afghanistan without their female staff due to the ban on permitting female workers. This came soon after a decision by the country's Taliban rulers to ban women from working at international and local non-governmental organizations. Much of the United States was swept over by dangerously cold wind chills affecting around 55 million people that continued on Christmas morning after a week-long winter storm plunged temperatures to life-threatening lows and brought blizzard conditions and coastal flooding, while knocking out power to hundreds of thousands of homes and businesses. The blizzard conditions persisted Sunday across the Great Lakes, while frigid temperatures gripped the eastern two-thirds of the country, with some major cities in the southeast, Midwest and East Coast recording their coldest Christmas in decades. Along with this, there are official freeze warnings across the South. New York City saw record cold temperatures on Christmas Eve at several locations, including its JFK and LaGuardia airports. Nearly 175,000 homes and businesses in the U.S. had no electricity. Since the start of the storm, the number of outages has at times exceeded 1 million customers. A power grid operator for at least 13 states in the country's eastern half asked customers to conserve power and set thermostats lower than usual from early Saturday to 10 a.m. on Sunday because usage was straining capacity. The brutal weather conditions have also impacted travel during the busy holiday weekend, with more than 5,000 flights cancelled Friday, more than 3,400 flights cancelled Saturday, and more than 1,350 cancelled on Christmas. At least 22 deaths have been attributed to dangerous weather conditions since the last week, as some residents in the northeast are living without sufficient heat or hot water as extremely cold temperatures persist. They include 3 storm-related deaths reported in Erie County. Colorado reported 2 deaths related to the cold. 3 people have died in weather-related traffic accidents in Kansas, 3 deaths in Kentucky, 1 death in Missouri, 8 people died as a result of weather-related accidents in Ohio, 1 storm-related fatality in Tennessee, and 1 fatal accident due to the weather in Wisconsin.
A statement made by the Chinese military on Sunday confirmed strike drills in the sea and airspace around Taiwan on Sunday in response to unspecified provocation from the democratically governed island and the United States. Taiwan, which China claims as its own territory, has complained of repeated Chinese military activity nearby over the past 3 years or so as Beijing seeks to pressure Taipei to accept Chinese sovereignty. Previously, on Saturday, China condemned the United States for a new defense authorization law that boosts military assistance for Taiwan. Earlier in August, China staged war games around Taiwan immediately after the visit of the then U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. U.S. arms sales to Taiwan are a constant irritant in Beijing's relations with Washington. China has never renounced using force to bring Taiwan under its control. Taiwan strongly disputes China's sovereignty claims, saying only the island's 23 million people can decide their future. Though Taiwan's defense ministry declined immediate comment, the ministry publishes a daily report at 9 a.m. of Chinese military activities near the island over the previous 24 hours. The Criminal Court of Maldives has sentenced former President Abdullah Yameen to 11 years in prison after being found guilty of money laundering and bribery. Mr. Yameen was accused of abusing his position and taking a $1 million bribe from a private company to facilitate the sale of ARA for resort development. Mr. Yameen lost power in 2018 and was sentenced to 5 years in jail and fined $5 million in 2019 for embezzling $1 million in state funds, which the prosecution said was acquired through the lease of resort development rights. After his sentencing, Yameen was shifted to house arrest in 2020 but was freed months later. Since his release, he had engaged in active politics through an anti-India campaign raising concerns in New Delhi. It is significant to note that for the 2023 elections in the archipelago, Mr. Yameen will be the presidential candidate of the Progressive Party. Strategically located in the Indian Ocean region, Maldives is a focal point for competition between India and China over influence in the region.
A recent government survey states a shocking decline in the population of polar bears from the western part of Hudson Bay, the polar bear capital of the world in the Canadian Arctic region. The numbers are more worrisome in case of female bears and cubs. The reports are based on aerial surveys conducted every 5 years to count the bear population. The recent survey during August and September 2021 spotted 194 bears and based on that count estimated a total population of 618, down from 842 in the previous survey. A comparison between the two surveys as well as a decadal study suggests that the numbers of adult female and sub-adult bears may be decreasing in abundance. The consistent decline may be the after effects of demographic displacement, lack of food and climate variations. The mammals are forced to adapt to hunting in iceless waters and also to go without sufficient prey. With the Arctic region warming up faster than the rest of the world, it is alarming as without proper care, the bears may soon end up getting in the Red Data Book's endangered list. Christmas is being celebrated across the globe with traditional fervor and gaiety, rejoicing the birth of Jesus Christ. On the occasion, midnight mass is organized at churches. People decorate their houses by putting a Christmas tree, illuminated paper star, and holy wreaths. They visit their relatives and exchange gifts. President Draupadi Murmu, Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi have extended greetings to the people on the occasion. In his message on the eve of Christmas, Pope Francis said, "The true riches in life are to be found not in money and power, but in relationships and persons." Prime Minister Narendra Modi has extended his greetings on the occasion of Losar, which is marked with enthusiasm in Ladakh as New Year. He hoped that the New Year will bring happiness and well-being in everyone's lives.
Prachanda today became Prime Minister for the third time. President Bidya Devi Bhandari on Sunday evening appointed Prachand as the Prime Minister as per Article 76(2) of the Constitution. President Bhandari appointed him as the Prime Minister after Prachand submitted the signatures of MPs including CPN-UML Maoist Centre and Rashtriya Prajatantra Party to President Bhandari, the President's office informed. Earlier in the day, CPN Maoist Centre Chairman Pushpa Kamal Dahal Prachand submitted a claim to form the government in his Prime Ministership before President. CPN-UML, CPN Maoist Centre, Rashtriya Swatantra Party Nepal, Rashtriya Prajatantra Party, Janata Samajwadi Party, Janmat Party, Nagrik Unmukti Party and 3 independent members of parliament had supported Dahal's candidature. Nepal celebrates 161st birth anniversary of Bharat Ratna Mahamana Madan Mohan Malviya in Green House in Kathmandu. Vice President of Nepal, Nanda Bahadur Pun Prasang Pandit graced the occasion as chief guest of the program organized by Mahamana Malviya Mission, Nepal. In the program, there was talk on Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Malviya thought in today's context. Madan Mohan Malviya was born on 25th December 1861 in Allahabad. He was a great Indian educationist and freedom fighter, distinguished from others for his significant role in Indian independence and his support of Hindu nationalism. In his later life, he was addressed as a Mahamana for his great works. He became the Indian National Congress president for 4 times. He is remembered in the world as the founder of Asia's largest residential university at Varanasi, the Banaras Hindu University, in 1916. The university has around 12,000 students all across the fields such as the arts, sciences, engineering and technology. He was the Vice Chancellor of BHU from 1919 to 1938. He was also the founder of Scouting in India, as well as a highly influential English newspaper, The Leader, which was published from Allahabad in 1909. On 150th birth anniversary of Mahamana, then Prime Minister of India, Dr. Manmohan Singh, has announced in December 2011 that a centre will be opened for Malviya studies at BHU, apart from the scholarships and educational awards in his memory. Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya remained the Hindustan Times' chairman from 1924 to 1946. Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya was posthumously awarded the highest civilian award of India, the Bharat Ratna, in 2014.
In today's Hot Sports section, we bring you news commentary on India-US relations on an upswing.
The India-US partnership has strengthened as they face mutual challenges and are collaborating on several areas. The year 2022 witnessed a number of high-level exchanges between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Joe Biden, both in person, such as in Quad Summit in Tokyo in May 2022, and on the sidelines of the G20 summit and virtually too. India also took part in the 2+2 ministerial meeting in Washington, D.C. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and Defense Minister Rajnath Singh met with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. There were other high-level exchanges too. Washington hosted the important 2+2 dialogue between the defense and foreign ministers of the two countries. The dialogue is a mechanism for strengthening bilateral relationship through greater integration of defense, security and intelligence apparatus. On the bilateral economic aspect, India and the US held ministerial level meeting of the India-United States Trade Policy Forum. Apart from enhancing bilateral economic relations, they agreed to work collaboratively and constructively in relevant multilateral trade bodies including the World Trade Organization, WTO, the G20 and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD. Officials of the two governments have been meeting in person or virtually to take forward cooperation in key areas such as counter-terrorism, defense and the Indo-Pacific, and have helped shape the response to the situation in Afghanistan. On the sidelines of the Tokyo Quad Summit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Biden welcomed the signing of the Investment Incentive Agreement, which enables the U.S. Development Finance Corporation to continue providing investment support in India in sectors of shared priority such as healthcare, renewable energy, SMEs, infrastructure, etc. The India-US Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technologies, ICET, to facilitate the outcome-oriented cooperation was launched, co-led by the National Security Council Secretariat in India and the US National Security Council. ICET would forge closer linkages between government, academia and industry of the two countries in areas such as AI, quantum computing, 5G, 6G, biotech, space and semiconductors. Noting that defense and security cooperation is a crucial pillar of the India-US bilateral agenda, both sides agreed to further strengthen collaboration. Prime Minister invited the US industry to partner with India to manufacture in India under the Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat or Self-Reliant India programs, which can be of mutual benefit to both the countries. The leaders exchanged views on regional issues of mutual interest, including South Asia and in the Indo-Pacific region, reaffirming their shared vision for a free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific region. Among the regional issues, China has emerged as a significant challenge for both nations. India and the US have bilateral relations with China that have elements of cooperation, competition and conflict. Nonetheless, shared concerns about the dramatic rise of China and its expanding economic, political and military engagements from Europe and Africa to Asia to the Pacific have led to a shift in the strategic realities in both New Delhi and Washington, D.C. The other issue of importance is the Indo-Pacific. The region is now a significant geopolitical strategic focal point, and India's own approach toward the Indo-Pacific is shaped by a new strategic environment coinciding with the rise of China, particularly in the Indian Ocean region and South Asia. India and the US have found increasing convergence on their strategies vis-à-vis the Indo-Pacific region. Within this ambit, India and the US have worked to increase cooperation with partners such as Japan and the ASEAN, as also among the Quad member states. The COVID-19 pandemic has necessitated a global cooperative approach to addressing the health crisis. India has supplied vaccines and medical equipment to nations across the world. As they continue to administer vaccines to their citizens, the two governments have pledged to lead the global efforts to end the pandemic. India is an important partner in the UN-led COVAX program as also the Quad initiative to fight the pandemic. India and the US, along with other partners, have launched an infrastructure development plan for the region that will provide technical assistance and other tools for sustainable infrastructure development. Climate change has emerged as an important area of cooperation between the two nations. The two sides launched a new high-level partnership, the US-India Climate and Clean Energy Agenda 2030 Partnership, which envisages bilateral cooperation on strong actions in the current decade to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement. In the coming years, the bilateral engagement between India and the US is expected to gain further traction.
Moving on, more than 50 people have been injured in an intercity coach crash in the province of British Columbia, Canada. It happened near the town of Merritt, where temperatures dropped to minus 3.9 degrees Celsius on Saturday. British Columbia's Interior Health Authority has issued a code orange, meaning services are responding to a disaster or mass casualties. It is not known what caused the crash, which happened about 160 miles or 260 kilometers from the provincial capital of Victoria. 53 people were taken to hospital following the incident. Their conditions have not been disclosed by the local health authorities. Premier David Eby said he was shocked and saddened to hear of the serious incident. A special weather statement issued at 16:24 hours on Saturday warned of challenging travel conditions on the Okanagan Connector due to heavy snow, ice pellets and freezing rain. All railway services between Canada's two biggest cities, Toronto and Montreal, have been cancelled for Christmas after a train derailed in poor weather conditions. And now a recap on the G20 activities held so far.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi today expressed pride that India displayed its might in every field in the year 2022. Addressing the nation in the 96th episode of his Mann Ki Baat program on All India Radio, Mr. Modi said that the various successes of 2022 have created a special place for India all over the world. He stated that 2022 was a year when India attained the status of the world's fifth largest economy and made the record of surpassing 220 crore COVID vaccines. He highlighted that India crossed the magical exports figure of $400 billion and welcomed the first indigenous aircraft carrier, INS Vikrant. He expressed delight that Indian youth showed tremendous power in the field of sports, be it the Commonwealth Games or the victory of the women's hockey team. The Prime Minister lauded the strength, cooperation and resolve of the people this year. Prime Minister said India got the responsibility of chairing the G20 group this year. He told people that they have to take the enthusiasm of G20 to new heights in 2023 and make the event a mass movement. Gearing up to meet the challenges of health, finance in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic, prevention, preparedness and response and urban development issues under U20 topped the agenda this week for G20 under India's presidency. The views expressed by G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant in an article titled Path Ahead India and G20 in the Mann Ki Baat booklet got a lot of traction. He reiterated that India's G20 presidency will be inclusive, ambitious, decisive and action-oriented. And the theme of One Earth, One Family, One Future highlights the need for collective action and unified goals. Mr. Kant wrote that presidency of G20, a group that accounts for 85% of the world's GDP, has always been a position of great honor and greater responsibility. And India will look to emerge as a bridge between the developed and developing states for enhanced cooperation. The G20 Sherpa emphasized that mission life or lifestyle for environment, financing of SDGs, green energy transitions, food security and ensuring reliable supply chains for food and energy and digital transformation will be India's key priority areas in the presidency of G20. He added that a new work stream on disaster risk reduction, that is DRR, has been established under India's presidency. The group will work towards achieving disaster risk reduction goals and further enhance global preparedness against disaster. These include building a resilient infrastructure. The Member Secretary, NDMA, Kamal Kishore, shared how the agenda for disaster risk reduction fits into the G20 framework for a secure world. The first meeting of the Joint Finance and Health Task Force, JFHTF, under India's G20 presidency was held in virtual mode on Tuesday, December 20. The participants were the finance and health representatives from G20 and invited countries, as well as international organizations. Italy and Indonesia co-chaired the meeting. The task force was set up last year at the G20 summit in Rome to exchange experiences and best practices and coordination between finance and health ministries in the wake of the pandemic. The idea was to promote collective action, assess and address health emergencies with cross-border impact. Former Indian Ambassador Anil Wadhwa outlined the role and responsibility of the Joint Finance and Health Task Force. The task force secretariat worked with the Indian presidency and co-chairs Italy and Indonesia to draft the work plan for next year and beyond. It was designed around the India's presidency global health priorities for 2023. The work plan was presented for adoption. During the meeting, the members expressed commitment for strengthening global health architecture for pandemic prevention, preparedness and response. They would be working with the secretariat and the co-chairs on achieving the deliverables for next year. Chairman of the National Technical Advisory Group on Immunization, Dr. N.K. Arora, said the funding provisions to tackle the challenges of pandemic under the aegis of G20 needs to be utilized effectively. He cited how India upscaled the development of N95 masks and subsequently the COVID-19 vaccine and served as the pharmacy of the world. As the deliberations on the finance track continued, India's chief coordinator Harshvardhan Shringla met with the representatives from Japan, Sweden and India. The discussions were focused on enhancing collaborations in priority sectors like health, education and digital transformation. The issues pertaining to urban development and how the cities from G20 countries can take a leaf out of the successful models have been an integral part of G20 deliberations. In keeping with this mandate, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs has been organizing the Urban 20 events or U20. The event started on 1st of December and will go on till November 30th next year. Urban 20 is one of the engagement groups of G20 which provides a platform for cities from G20 countries to discuss important issues of urban development including climate change, social inclusion, sustainable mobility, affordable housing and financing of urban infrastructure and propose collective solutions. As part of the Urban 20 event, Gujarat Chief Minister Bhupendra Patel unveiled the logo, website and social media handles of Urban 20 on 19th of December in Ahmedabad. Union Minister for Housing and Urban Affairs Hardeep Singh Puri joined the event virtually. He said that Urban 20 is part of city diplomacy as cities are the powerhouse that drives global economic growth. The minister outlined how India has developed its urban infrastructure. Under the G20 presidency of India, Ahmedabad, a UNESCO World Heritage City, will host U20 cycle along with Climate 40 or C40 and United Cities and Local Governments, UCLG, two international non-governmental advocacy groups on urban issues. Ahmedabad will organize various events. These include the first Sherpa meeting of the Urban 20 on February 9 to 10, thematic discussions and side events on urban development issues. These events will lead to the U20's Mayor Summit in July 2023. 2023 has been designated as the International Year of Millets to showcase its agricultural importance and nutritional values. it coincides with India hosting G20 under its presidency. In order to raise awareness about the importance of millets, Prime Minister Narendra Modi hosted a lunch for MPs on December 20 in the Parliament. He urged the people to make the International Year of Millets 2023 a mass movement. Amidst recent surge in COVID-19 cases in China, the Ministry of External Affairs said that India is keeping a close watch on the situation. At a weekly briefing on 22nd of December, the MEA spokesperson Arindam Bagchi said India's objective is to hold G20 meetings in a physical format. In response to a query if the meetings could be held in a virtual format, he said that whether, as and when and if the plans or the guidelines have to change will be made known. India has planned more than 200 meetings for G20 across the country, and some have already taken place in December.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news.
The Directorate General of Health Services DGHS of Bangladesh has asked all the ports in the country to increase screening and take precautionary measures to prevent spike of Omicron subvariant BF7 virus. According to United News of Bangladesh, UNB, DGHS has instructed the authorities concerned to strengthen surveillance and screening of people coming to Bangladesh from countries including China, India, Japan, South Korea, US, France, Brazil and Germany. It has urged people to wear masks in crowded areas, wash hands frequently and get the second booster dose of COVID-19 vaccine to enhance immunity against the disease. The Omicron subvariant BF7 has been found to be highly infectious, which requires high precautionary measures. Meanwhile, the sample positivity rate in Bangladesh was recorded at 0.44%, with just 6 cases being detected over the last 24 hours this morning. Sri Lanka, being predominantly a Buddhist country, sees people across faiths come together to celebrate Christmas. The festival has become more of a human celebration and less of a religious one. Every shopping centre, store and bakery has classic Christmas decoration. Christmas morning was welcomed in with firecrackers at midnight. Meanwhile, the Gale Face Green, which was the centre of the protests, has turned into a festive site with a Christmas fair. People have been thronging the fair for celebrating with family and also to hear the Christmas carols.
China's National Health Commission, NHC, on Sunday stopped publishing daily COVID-19 data amid doubts about their reliability as infections have exploded in the wake of an abrupt easing of tough restrictions. The Commission said that relevant COVID information would be published by the Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention for reference and research. Despite the record surge of infections, the NHC had reported no COVID deaths nationwide for 4 consecutive days before halting the data release. Earlier, China narrowed its definition for reporting COVID deaths, counting only those from COVID-caused pneumonia or respiratory failure. According to state media, the country's healthcare system has been under enormous strain, with staff being asked to work while sick and even retired medical workers in rural communities being rehired to help grassroots efforts. The WHO has received no data from China on new COVID hospitalizations since Beijing eased its restrictions. The organization says the data gap might be due to the authorities struggling to tally cases in the world's most populous country. In cricket, an unbeaten 71 runs partnership for the 8th wicket between Shreyas Iyer and Ravichandran Ashwin helped India to defeat Bangladesh in the second to clinch the series 2-0 at Sher-e-Bangla National Stadium in Dhaka on Sunday. And a quick look at the headlines once again. Indian Prime Minister Modi says India's successes in 2022 created special place for it in the world. Push Dahal Kamal Prachand appointed Nepal's PM for the 3rd time. Former Maldivian Prime Minister Abdullah Yameen sentenced to 11 years of imprisonment over money laundering and bribery charges. NGOs in Afghanistan suspend work. Chinese military performed strike drills around Taiwan. And in cricket, India clinched the Test series against Bangladesh. Before we end, an Indian instrumental version of Jingle Bells on the occasion of Christmas. with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.